Let's decide what to trade. So tea. Now we can trade everything that we've brought up. There are things that we need to be a little bit careful of when it comes to trading. If there's an item in red on this list, it means that it's stolen property and the merchant won't buy it. If it's purple, it means that it's a forbidden item. There's a ban on an export of that particular item. The trader will accept it, but our dwarves will get into trouble for it. We'll cover nobles a little bit later on once we've got some. Other things to be careful of is selling artifacts. Artifacts are items that are created by dwarves who have fallen into a strange mood. If we sell an artifact that a dwarf has created, that dwarf will become extremely depressed because as far as they're concerned, it's their artifact, it's their personal property. And although we can do other things with that artifact, the one thing we can't do is to sell it. So we need to keep an eye out for artifacts. So over the right hand side of the screen is the stuff that we're selling. The left hand side of the screen is stuff that we can buy. The first column tells us the value, the second column tells us the weight. The weight is only important if we are trading with a merchant that hasn't brought any wagons and has only brought pack animals, because they won't be able to carry very much. Now the stuff that we're selling is all low weight anyway. So arrow key over to what the trader has and let's just have a browse through and see what I want to buy. Okay, right, I've been through and decided what to spend the cash on. So I've estimated that we can get slightly more than 100% value versus trader profit. Normally for the first trade, when my broker is inexperienced and doesn't have any negotiation skills, I will go 50-50 so that the trader profit and the value that we're purchasing is roughly equal, maybe just slightly in our favour. But I've decided to go a good bit in our favour because we do have just a bit of skill in negotiation. So we might be able to get a slightly better deal, but we'll see how that goes. Now, a few things that are worth noting is if you look at the price of a normal chert mug, a normal chert mug sells for 10 dwarf books. A chert mug with a minus sign sells for double that at 20. With a plus sign, it's triple at 30. And then with the asterisk, it's quadruple at 40. So the quality really does make quite a substantial difference to the price. And we can see that with the spiked balls as well. The price that they're paying for a normal spiked ball is 126, but it's 378 for a spiked ball that has got a plus sign in front of it. So let me show you what we're spending the cash on. Now the way this screen is laid out always follows a standard. You get whatever metal bars they have for sale at the start of the list, and I've chosen a selection of the cheaper metal bars, some of the ones that I'm not likely to focus on making myself, or I might struggle to find the materials, because you never quite know when you're going to get a demand later on in the game for a noble that wants black bronze armor stand in his bedroom or something. So it's nice to have a selection of weird metal bars around the place. Then we have the cut gems that they have. I never buy cut gems. Then blocks. The blocks can only be used for building. They can't be turned back into bars, and the metal blocks like aluminium and hematite can't be smelted. So blocks generally you're unlikely to want to buy. And if you have blocks of a flux stone, they can't be used in the making of steel. Now, raw glass is always worth a buy. We've got some in stock already, so I'm not going to bother. We've got sand on the map, so I don't need to stock up. We've got clay on the map somewhere, so I'm not going to worry about that. Then we go through the rope menu. Now I have bought some cheaper ropes because we're going to want to make some traction benches. I did bring one with me just in case we needed a traction bench before autumn, but we haven't needed it, so I've not used it yet. I've bought a couple of water skins just so that if we have 2 military members, we can now give them a water skin so that they can top up their refreshment. After the water skins comes the musical instruments. Sometimes I'll buy a musical instrument at this point, but I've decided not to this time. It would sort of throw the tutorial into an awkward order to try and show you what to do with those, so we'll buy a musical instrument at a later point. Then there's some toys that the kids play with. We've not bought any of those. You can buy toys and smelt the metals down if you find that you're short of a particular material. Then come the animals. There's animals in cages. There's no cages. There's no animals that I'm particularly interested in buying. The elves bring the best animals. A lot of people will steal everything that the elves have. I tend to continue trading with the elves, keep the elves as a friendly civilization for as long as I can. Eventually that relationship will break down, but I like to see what animals they bring along, because they bring along some really exotic things. Then we go through the barrels of stuff. Now, at the moment, there is no use for anything like venom in the game. So the only thing I've bought all of their milk because it's relatively cheap, and all of their alcohol. They don't have much, but I've bought it anyway. Sometimes I will buy just the barrels. It saves our dwarfs from making it. After the barrels, we get the buckets. I've bought one really fancy bucket. I'm going to use that for when we build a well later. And then we get into the weapons. I don't often buy weapons from a trader. Generally, at this stage, they're probably a bit more expensive than I'm prepared to buy. The only thing I might be tempted by is an extra pick, but I think we've got as many miners as we want at the moment. Then we get to armour and clothes for the upper body. Now, I've bought a tunic because it was cheap. I tend to buy cheap clothes when I see them, because we are going to need a huge clothing industry to keep our dwarves clothed, and the more we can buy, the less we have to make. I tend not to buy armour because we can usually make better armour than the armour that we can find on sale, although that does vary. Shoes, boots, socks, so this is the footwear. I've bought some socks, again, just because our dwarves will run out of socks. The socks will start to rot off their feet and they won't be happy. I tend not to buy the boots because, again, we can make better boots than they have on sale. Now, we do have a slight problem when it comes to shoes, because if we have a look at what our dwarves are wearing, if we go to Dwarf Therapist and hover over equipment, we can see what they're wearing at the moment. And those clothes will start to wear out, and as they wear out, we need to replace them. Now, there's some things that we're going to struggle to do that with, like togas. I don't think we can make togas, but if we have a look at Bernie, now the orange one, it's got the llama wool shoe, so this is the shoe on his right foot. It's got little X in front of it. That tells us that it's tattered. And that probably happened when he was fighting the Coati, so it probably bit his foot and damaged his shoe. We have a look at Potatina, because Potatina was the other one that was fighting. So the mitten on her left hand is also tattered. Now, I have bought a mitten from the trader, but he doesn't have any shoes on sale, otherwise I would have bought the shoes as well. But having a look further down, I bought some gloves, some mittens. Yes, we go through footwear, then we go through shields, then we go through the handwear, and I've bought some gloves and mittens, quite a few. It just, again, saves us having to make them quite so early. Then we get into containers. So these are bags of stuff and chests and coffers. I've bought some cheap bags, but they don't have any bags containing anything that I wanted to buy. I would have bought bags of plump helmet spawn, or in particular pigtail seeds I would have bought, or gypsum powder. So hopefully we'll get some gypsum powder next time they arrive, because we've told them that we'll pay a higher price for gypsum powder, and that should heavily influence what they bring us next year. Lots and lots of different types of bags, and it's by buying the cheap bags it means that we don't have to use our leather and our cloth to make more bags of our own. I've then bought some cloth bins. So this is just stacks of cloth. You can buy the cloth individually, but if you buy the cloth bin, you get a free bin thrown in it, and bins help with storage. They're a bit tricky to work with. We have to be careful about our storage when it comes to bins, but we'll go through that in a little while. I bought a little bit of silk cloth, just the cheapest stuff, and another cloth bin. Now if they'd have had any bins of leather, I'd have bought that as well, or instead of something else. Then they have the figurines. I never buy figurines, we sell them, we don't buy them. Then it's ammunition. I haven't bought any ammunition. Then we have some more crafts and the large gems. Now I have bought a steel anvil. I would have preferred an iron anvil. There is no difference in what you can make or how fast you can make it between steel and iron. So probably what I'll do is I'll build a forge using a steel anvil, and I'll use it to make an iron anvil, and then I'll melt down the steel anvil to use for steel. I bought a random selection of meats, some fish. I haven't bothered buying any of the plants this time. Sometimes I do. It helps to add variety to the diet, and a lot of these things we can brew alcohol out of, and it gives us a different variety of alcohol. We'll probably buy some in the future. I've bought a selection of the cheaper yarns and threads. Then we get into legwear. They don't have any trousers on sale, otherwise I might have bought trousers. They only have leggings and greaves, and they're both armour, and yeah, very expensive, and we can probably make better. I bought a couple of the backpacks. Backpacks are used by the military to carry food with them. Then we get into quivers. I've not bothered buying any quivers. Then trap components, which I've not bought. We sell trap components, we don't usually buy them. Then some cheeses. I've bought some cheeses for variety. Splints and crutches, very rare I buy those. Sometimes it's just if I've got more money than I know what to do with. And then we get onto the books. I will often buy at least one book on the first caravan, but in order to store the book we have to build a library and put a bookcase in it, and I thought maybe we should save that for a little bit later on in the tutorial series. So at the latest we will buy the first book this time next year, but maybe sooner than that. We might be able to buy a book from one of the other caravans that come mid-year. And all of these things here, the I Must Stand and the Stribnite pot, they are components of musical instruments. We can buy bits of musical instruments and then combine them together to make a musical instrument of our own. I don't usually bother with that. And then we have codices, rollers and sheets. I will often buy that sort of stuff. Sheets and rollers allow us to make writing materials that we can put in our library, and then we can start creating our own books. But we're not in a rush for those. So that's what we're going to buy this time. Right, now is there anything else I want to show you on this screen before I move on? Yeah, let's just show you the rest of the menu. So let's pick a thing. Did the truth falter? So there's a book. Might be something interesting about that book. So looking down at the menu here, if we press V, we can view that. And if we press V again for description, we can get a bit more interest about it. This will tell us what it is that this book is about. This is a scroll. it has a very serious tone, and overall the prose is amateurish at best. Now, if we wanted to steal the stuff from a merchant, maybe the elves had arrived and we decided that we were just going to steal it and not pay for it, then we would pick a thing that we have marked for trade, and then we will press S for C's marked. Now, if we press Q, you can just see there that brings a little underscore next to the search box. And if we type something in, let's say shoe, for example, you can see that they haven't got any shoes to sell. They do have some short swords. And then if you just move your arrow keys, it'll take you out of the search menu, and now we'll go T for trade. Are we sure we want to trade? Yes, we do. Okay, they've accepted that. That's pretty good. Right, that's as much as we want to trade, so we'll press escape to come out of that. And then we'll press R again to say that Tammy is no longer required at the depot. Ah, we have an Elven Caravan. Now, for Elven Caravans, there's a limit to what we can sell them. They won't accept anything made out of wood, and they won't accept anything made out of animal products. We can't sell any of our spiky balls. We can sell them goblets. We can't even sell them barrels of food because the barrels are made out of wood. However, what we could do, very quickly going to build a jeweler's workshop. Yep, there's chert blocks right next to it. That will do fine. Now, this is quite good. It'll move all of the gems out of the way that are lying around the place. So that's no bad thing. It'll take the elves a little while to arrive, and in the meantime we can be cutting some gems to sell to them. So now we can trade. We haven't got a lot to sell, but let's see. Yeah, it's only worth 530. Let's see if they've got anything worth buying. Well, a loon is a type of duck, so I'm not especially interested in that. Wild boar is pretty much just like a pig. There's nothing special about them. You can't train them to do anything. A barn owl I'm not particularly interested in, and a groundhog is pretty much like a cavey, so I'm not interested in any of their animals. We could buy some shoes off them. That wouldn't be a bad idea. It's not worth buying any of the elven instruments because we can't play them. So they don't really have anything of interest. So I don't mind that we haven't got an awful lot to trade. We could get some extra food off them. Maybe a hood. Yeah, we'll get some walnuts, some hazelnuts, some almonds, acorns and cherries. We'll just get it so that we are more than 50%. And I think that will do for us. Okay, let's trade. A human caravan has arrived. There's the guild representative there. Right, what are we going to buy? Let's see. All of our stuff comes to 7,000. All right, I'll show you what we've bought. I've bought all of their alcohol because it's not expensive and it's a nice variety for us. And there'll be some of our dwarves will really like it. I've bought an iron whip. It's one of the few weapons that's worth buying is the whips. Whips are fantastic weapons and we can't make them. So when I see them on sale, if I can, I always buy them. And they have iron anvils on sale. So I've bought an iron anvil. So we'll just be able to smelt down that steel anvil that we bought. And that's that. So let's see if we can trade. Yep, they're happy with that. Very good. And the dwarf traders are here. Now this time, instead of trading everything, I'm going to send them individually because I don't actually want to sell the bin. Just the stuff that's in it. Okay, so this is what I've bought. I bought some shoes and some gloves and mittens. I bought some cheap bags because I noticed that we've got seeds just lying on the floor that are not in a bag. I also found that they had a bag of pigtail seeds and they've got some bags of gypsum powder as well, so I've bought that. Now, I didn't buy any of their meat because at the moment they are charging a high price for meat, but they're charging a normal price for fish, so I bought a load of fish. And I've also bought one book off them. We'll get a library going soon. I've chosen this book because if we have a look at it, it's a giant great horned owl parchment scroll. The rollers are made from brimstone. Written on the item is a manual entitled Questions About Rainfall, authored by Moldath Geardshoot. It concerns the origin of rainfall through evaporation and condensation. The writing is quite cheerful. Overall, the prose is splendid. And I thought, well, it seems to rain here an awful lot, so that seems to be appropriate. But the fact that the prose is splendid, it's not often you get splendid prose, so I thought that would be a good book for us to go for our first book. So yes, let's see if they will be happy with that trade. And they are. Very good. The elves are here. Now, Kednath Cassith. That is one of our artifacts, so we need to make sure we don't sell that. Oh, human merchants. We'll take all of the finished goods down and we'll see what's in there. We just need to be careful because there's probably some artifacts in there. Well, I would like them to bring whips. And we'll pay a little bit extra for whips if they come with a good one. Right, we don't want to sell the bin. Just want to sell the ring that's in it. Again, we don't want to sell the bin. We just want to sell all of the gems that are in there. And we don't want to sell that bin. We want to sell the things that are in it, but we don't want to sell the artifact. Now, if we have a look at our current mayor and their preferences, they're like picks, shields, figurines, and a bunch of other stuff. There is every chance that at some point Little Brethren may put a ban on the sale of figurines. Now, if we sell figurines to the trader, and then before the trader has left the map, the mayor puts the ban on the figurines, we will get an awful lot of people in trouble. So we don't have many figurines. So what I'm going to do is take them off the trade list. Okay, so Tammy has been trading quite a bit now. So what I'm hoping is that she has enough skill that we can get a lot more bang for our buck. So I've selected a bunch of items. It's mostly cloth and leather. And we're now going for buying a value that is 3 times higher than the trader profit. Let's see what the trader thinks about that. Okay, trade. Let's try. Oh, yes. Okay, he's accepted that. That's good. And indeed, Little Brethren did put an export ban on figurines, but it wasn't till after the traders left the map. So our dwarfs wouldn't have been in trouble in this case, but it's always worth checking. I have had half of my fortress jailed before now, after selling something that wasn't banned at the time of sale, but was banned by the time the traders left the map. Now, just before we finish, I want to just have a look at a couple of comments that I've received. A few people have mentioned how good prepared food is as a trade good. This is a comment here from Surlock, who mentions that they're interested that I'm using goblets and wood trap components as trade goods. And they find that a decent farming and cooking industry produces more prepared food than they can eat or trade. And that's so true, and I don't know why I've never got round to doing this. And even if you are a bit short of wood and you don't want to sell your barrels, you can even put your food in rock pots. It doesn't have to be in barrels. But we will be producing more peacock and pork and dog and cat roast dinners than we can possibly sell. And what will end up is our food stockpiles will end up with a bias towards the meat that we produce the most of. And by selling some of that stuff off, we also have this added benefit of being able to keep a variety of food in our food stockpile. Now, another thing that Sir Luck says is that the game tracks value of goods on and off the map. Yeah, now this is something I hadn't really thought of. If your merchants don't bring goods back home, then you get less the next time. So if you sell a lot of stuff, and if you sell to the merchants at a really good price, just give them far more than you need to, then it keeps them really happy and they keep on bringing a good selection of goods. So it seems that how much you trade with them and how big a profit they get has some sort of relationship to how much and what the variety of stuff is that they bring to trade with you in the future. And as far as I can tell, this works with all three of the civilizations: elves, dwarves and humans. So that's all for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed this. Do tell me if you have any other interesting trade strategies, or if there is something you think I should do, shouldn't do. I think one thing that we should be doing that I haven't been showing here is, rather than just selling the gems, we could be encrusting our trade goods with the gems. That's certainly something I get onto a bit later in the game. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.